Hello, fellow Star Trek fans. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Clonestar Podcast. Of course, I am your host, Mike Overton, and joining me in the co-host seat this week is my dear friend Sho. Sho, how are you doing this week?
Mike, it's absolutely great to be here and great to be here with Spencer as well, I might
It
add.
is. Now, this week, we're joined by an actor. Well, it's probably easier just to say what he hasn't been in. Maybe you'll know him from, I'm going to have to take a deep breath here. Murder, She Wrote, Air Force One, The West Wing, CSI, Law and Order, NCIS, 24, Supernatural, 21, Yes Man, Criminal Minds, Transformers, Iron Man, Captain America, Mad Men, For All Mankind, Bosch, Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, The Resistance, and of course Suits LA. And the list doesn't stop there. And to be honest, it doesn't really ever stop. He's the hardest working man in Hollywood, just beating out his agent for the top spot. He also has connections to West Cork, so automatically makes him even cooler. You may also know him as Simon Tarses from the TNG episode The Drumhead, or as the liberated hologram from Voyager's Flesh and Blood. We are delighted that in between his ridiculously busy schedule, Spencer Garrett is joining us. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, fellas, what a treat. What a treat. It's only a year in the making. And what a glorious introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And
That was
Spencer,
that was just on Tuesday, all of those things.
Yeah, tomorrow's episode is even longer.
Tomorrow's episode. And now I feel like I'm 87 years old.
and Spencer, that was actually the shortened version of like what we could have actually put in because like that was a condensed version of the thing.
Yeah.
I think I was looking at your IMDb. I think it's 239 acting credits.
Who's counting?
IMDb, obviously.
You are, obviously. 239, is that right?
It's 230 previous, and apparently there's 9 upcoming.
There's 9 upcoming. I'm going for a nice round 300.
Yeah,
good batting average of about 300. I'd like to hit. Let's see, 239. Yeah, if I can hit 300, that would be a nice good number.
But Spencer, I don't think you strike me as the kind of man who actually would ever retire from it. I think like you come across someone who because of the nature of what you've done and like all these different parts and all that you obviously must really enjoy being able to just jump in, do something different, and not be tied down to say a singular character for say 7-8 years and all that.
I love it, guys. I mean, I never get tired of it. I grew up in it. My mom's an actor. My grandparents were actors. My aunt and uncle were both actors. My grandparents ran a theater on the Goldenrod Showboat in St. Louis, in Missouri, and so it's in my blood. And when I made the decision to do this, when I was in my early 20s, if I had the sense God gave a donut, I probably would have done something a little bit more stable and certain.
Yeah,
but it's a roller coaster ride. You buy the ticket and you get on the roller coaster and you take the ride. And I've been lucky. I've been very lucky to have been able to stay working as long as I have. So.
but as you said, like you'd such a huge kind of family connection to acting and things like that. Like, was it always like just a foregone conclusion, or did you ever say, actually, do you know what? I'd love to be an accountant. I'd love to do something like human resources. That's
I didn't want to
for
be an
me.
accountant. I don't think anybody wants to be an accountant.
I was going to say, who wakes up in the morning and go, today I'm going to be an accountant?
That never happened, guys. It never happened to me. But you know what? I saw my mom's. I was a single mother. My mom raised me, and she was a bit of a star in the 60s and 70s. And as you guys probably know, when you hit a certain age in Hollywood as a woman, you have a pretty, at least in that period of time, your shelf life is pretty low. And so I watched her fortunes rise and fall. And so there was a period where, she was working very, very steadily for a long time, and then she wasn't after she was president of the Screen Actors Guild, and things sort of tailed off. And when they tailed off, that's when I was, kind of growing up as a kid. And so I saw the downside. I saw the pitfalls, and I knew what a perilous business it could be to get involved with. And but I was surrounded by actors all the time and people in the business all the time. That's all I knew. And so when I made the decision to do it, I think I knew what I was getting myself into, and I thought, all right, I'm going to give this a try. And if it doesn't work out, there's always my fallback as an accountant. So I honestly, I thought, if this doesn't work out, and I really did. I moved out. I started out in New York a little bit, and I did some theater and some low budget films and off Broadway. And then I moved out to LA, and I gave it a shot in LA. And I thought, okay, if I'm not in a certain groove at a certain level by this period of time, that I could safely say I gave it my best shot, and I can hang up my cleats. But so far it's worked out. But,
and Spencer, like when you were kind of in that stage, and were you kind of looking at yourself saying, I want to be like a movie star, or I want to be kind of a series actor, or I want to be on the stage more?
I just wanted to be a working actor. That's all I've ever wanted to be. I mean, there are a lot of perks that come with some of the things that I've been able to do. You have good years and bad years. I had a great couple of years, a few years back, when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out, and you ride these little waves of notoriety and fame and all that, but that's all fleeting. And I got to see a glimpse of that very early on. So like I said, I knew that Hollywood is artifice, and it's how you're perceived. And so I just really, once I started working, and I came out of the gate pretty strong when I moved out to LA in the early 90s. As you said, Star Trek was 91. So I moved out here in 89, and I kind of hit the ground running. And I wasn't chasing fame. I've never chased fame. I really just wanted to be like a working actor. And the working actor to me was the guys that I grew up watching and revering, and the kinds of films that I was drawn to as a kid in the mid to late 70s when I was growing up, were the movies, because the 70s were the golden age of filmmaking. So, you had the Godfather films, and the actors that were coming up were the Pacinos and the De Niros and Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman and people like that. And I started to realize, you look at a movie like All the President's Men, 74, 75, and all of those actors in that movie, all of those character actors, those are the guys that you see in every other movie. So I thought, okay, that's my benchmark. I want to be one of those guys that is like a go-to. Get me Spencer Garrett, put him in the ball game, and he'll make my movie better. And so, and sometimes that works out. So just the goal was to be a working actor.
Well, 239 credits, Spencer, would it seem to indicate that absolutely has worked out in that situation?
So far.
Question for you then, because I was only reading it lately. I haven't fully finished it. Have you read Quentin Tarantino's Cinema Paradiso book by any chance?
I read, it's called Cinema Speculation.
Oh, that's it. Cinema Speculation. Yes.
Oh, of course. In fact, I ran into him right after it came out, and he's like, have you seen my book? Have you read my book? And I said, no, I haven't. He's like, all right, I'm going to send it to you. So I got my first copy of that was signed by him. I mean, he's a guy that I just love the trajectory of that guy. I just love the way, he came out. He's a lover of cinema, a lover of film. And to have had the chance to work with him for 2 hours on Once Upon a Time was such a gift. There's Mike, one of your countrymen, there's a wonderful writer. You can look him up on Facebook and Instagram. His name is Jay Glennie, Glennie, and he's been tasked with writing the official Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the making of book.
Wow.
He's doing Inglourious Bastards, Django, and Once Upon a Time, I think. He's also written a great book on De Niro and The Deer Hunter. Wonderful writer. And he interviewed me for this book, and interviewed all the actors from Once Upon a Time. And there's a great, I will treasure it. And when the book finally comes out, I'm going to take the page from the book and frame it. Quentin said, the two actors from Once Upon a Time that knew that world better than anybody were Kurt Russell and Spencer Garrett. And I treasure that because I brought an authenticity and a truth to that character. That was my goal. The fact that he referenced me in his book is something I really treasure. Because that's what we aspire to do.
And Spencer, to kind of bring in kind of like a sports parlance, like I know at times, say somebody who's a substitute on a team will say that like when it's their time to come on, like they have to be up to the speed of the game immediately. Like there's no waiting around; they have to get straight into it, and things like that. And as you said, like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's a very short scene that you're in, but you've got to, as you said, embody the world in a tiny period of time to make it all believable, all relatable, and all that. How do you approach a situation like that, specifically in the realms of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, with what Tarantino said about you? How did you feel you approached it?
By the way, I gotta rewind just for a sec to say that what I just said to you sounds really pretentious, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it was such a lovely kind of affirmation of what we all try to do as actors, and the fact that he said that about me in this world of magnificent artists that are in that movie. So yeah, it was just a blip of a scene, but what I tried to bring was, by the way, I think possibly 2 takes. I don't think that we did any more than 2 takes of that scene. It was the first scene up in the morning, really early. We banged it out really quickly, and before I knew it, I was back in my car at 9 o'clock in the morning, driving back down the freeway home, and I thought, did that just fucking happen? It was crazy. So you got to, for somebody like Quentin, you got to show up prepared, ready to rock and roll, and that's what I did. I mean, there's no mucking about. There was very little rehearsal. Mm-hmm. He likes to just like go, and so we did the scene. We did the coverage on me, and then we did the coverage on Brad and Leo, and then flipped it around. We did one more take, and then he asked me to do that sign off, that little bit where I say, "This is Alan Kincaid from Hollywood," and so I kind of came up with that little tagline, which was fun. So he gave me that little gift of being able to create that for myself. So he's just a generous director. You got to love a director who loves actors. Mm-hmm. And that brings out the best in you. I've worked with directors who are masterful directors, whose names shall not be mentioned here, but major star directors who are great at creating mise en scène and creating beautiful images, but don't know how to deal with actors, don't know how to talk to them. And it's something that is very, actors love to be, I love to be directed, and I love to be pointed in a certain direction and find different shapes and colors to the scene. And that's what Quentin did. Every director is different, obviously, but that was an experience that I will take with me forever. I thought when I was done with that scene, I thought, okay, I can die happy.
I remember I was reading a book about Star Trek's 50th years and things like that, and one of the things they were talking about was during the off seasons on Deep Space Nine, say, Colm Meaney was often a man hugely in demand because of his character actor nature that he just brought in to kind of do things and things like that. Spencer, this is a really stupid question. Do you find that, do you do well with kind of, if there's a lull in, say, between working and things like that, do you kind of handle that well, or are you anxious to say, no, I want to get out, I want to be acting, I want to be doing something, or like what kind of personality do you have?
That's a great question. I'm not a big fan of the lull. I try to, as a teacher, I teach my acting students. You have to have something, because there's going to be a lot of lulls. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of dips and valleys, and you have to find other things to do to occupy your time and your heart and your soul, and find other things that fulfill you as much as acting does. I love it. I love doing it. But I also learned early on that, I could do 2, 3, 4 jobs a year and then not work for 9 months. And so that's when I had to figure out, okay, what else do I want to learn how to do? Do I want to learn how to go rock climbing? Do I want to learn how to paint? Do I want to learn an instrument? You've got to find other things to fill the blank spaces. I think that's essential, and that's what I try to do. I try to fill it with travel. I travel as often as I can. That's probably my main passion that I geek out on, and cooking and other things.
Except to Ireland. 10
Except to
years.
Ireland,
10
I know.
years, Spencer. 10.
I'll get there. I will.
Spencer, the question is, when is the book coming out? Surely, Spencer.
The book's coming out in November, I think. And I actually pre-ordered several copies for myself on Amazon, so it's coming out.
What?
It's coming out in November.
November 11th. It's on Amazon now to pre-order.
Yeah.
I was only joking. Oh my God, there actually is a book. Oh my God.
There's a book.
Yes.
Can you see it? It's can you
The
see
Making of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Hardcover.
Gorgeous cover. It's going to be, you guys. It's going to be an event. It's going to be a real. It's going to be a real gorgeous book when it comes out.
What I meant is, I was waiting for the Spencer Garrett autobiography to come out.
Oh.
The Life in Hollywood book.
Oh, that book.
That book.
Well, I'm still writing that. I mean, that's still a work in progress. When I hit 300 credits, then I'll start writing.
So in about 18 months' time, then.
What's that?
In about 18 months' time.
In about 18 months' time. Well, it'll be maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm heading to Utah to do a Western in a couple of weeks. So that'll be what am I up to? 239?
239.
That'll be 241 then, won't it?
241 after Law and Order. Yeah. So, so I'm getting there. But no, I am writing something. It's not an autobiography, but I'm writing. There's a group of guys that have been getting together, a group of actors that have been getting together for the last 6 years now. And we call ourselves the Character Actors Dining Society, or the CADS for short. And it's you could probably look, Mike. You could look on my Instagram there, and you'll scroll down and find some pictures. It's a group of guys that started out as me and Alfred Molina, who's an old pal.
Yeah.
And one night we said, "Hey, let's get some drinks at Musso and Frank's." Enough, the old Hollywood restaurant where they filmed Once Upon a Time. And to make a long story short, we invited a couple of other guys that turned into 6 of us. And it was Alfred Molina, Lawrence Fishburne, Titus Welliver, Eric McCormick, Stephen Weber, and myself. And that formed the first night of what became the CADS. And now we are 12, which includes Bryan Cranston. I think I mentioned Fishburne. LeVar Burton is part of our group. And who else? Jason Alexander, Kevin Pollak, Rob Morrow, Noah Wiley. So there's a group of us. We have dinner once a month, and we just shoot the shit and swap stories. And it's become more. It's not just a bunch of guys who happen to be well-known actors eating food. It's sort of become a support group. Like we just became this pod of dudes who happen to be good working actors, and we just got to look out for each other. And it started before the pandemic, and then when everything shut down in the world, we had dinner with each other over Zoom from our respective houses, and we would pick a movie and we would watch the movie while we were eating dinner. So it's been a lovely thing. So
I've just found the photos on your Instagram.
yeah, it's a good gang. Michael McKeon is
Richard
a part
Kind.
of it. Richard Kind is our New York CAD. There's a wonderful actor named Danny Burstein who's starring in Gypsy on Broadway right now. Richard and Danny are the 2 New York guys, and so whenever Danny doesn't get out here that often, but Richard is out in LA a lot. So whenever he's here, we're having dinner. We're having dinner next week together for the first time.
What are you writing? What are you writing at the moment, then?
Sorry. So Bryan Cranston, who's written his own autobiography, made a deal with Random House for a CADS book, and each of us are contributing 2 stories about our experiences in Hollywood.
Wow.
And so the one that I'm currently in the midst of writing is about doing a movie in Istanbul with Gary Busey and Billy Zane, where the director didn't speak any English and none of the crew spoke English. And so the director was directing us through an interpreter. Gary Busey was slowly losing his mind in real time in front of us all. Billy Zane was enjoying the delights of the local hashish that was provided to him, and it was kind of my version of Apocalypse Now. Everybody was kind of slowly going nuts in the Istanbul heat in the summer of, I don't know, 93 or something, called Valley of the Wolves. It was an absolute shit show, and so I'm writing about that. And the other story, you're gonna have to wait for the other story because it's too delicious to. I don't want to give it too much away. But so each of the guys are contributing 2 stories. The book is hopefully going to come out by the end of the year, and all of the proceeds are 100% of the proceeds are going to 4 charities: the Motion Picture Television Fund, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, the Alzheimer's Foundation, and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And so all of the money that we make from the sale of the book, if anybody's interested in reading this thing, all of the money is going to charity. So
we'll publicize that like
Absolutely.
hell when it comes out, Spencer.
Oh yeah,
100%. Yeah, jeepers above.
Fantastic.
That's absolutely fantastic stuff.
Yeah,
it's funny with the character artists. Like you'd often see on social media the kind of the post where it says, "You know this actor's face, but you do not know this actor's name." And like when I was in work today, and I was chatting to one of my colleagues in Lithuania. And I was telling him about the podcast, and he said, "Oh, are you interviewing anyone soon?" And I said, "Yeah, we're interviewing like a brilliant actor tonight, Spencer Garrett." And he was there, "Who?" And I said, "I'll guarantee you, the second you see his face, you will recognize him." And I sent on your IMDb page. He was there, "That guy, I know him." And
that guy.
Said, yeah.
Well, so you can tell your friend in Lithuania that if he ever wants to come visit my tombstone, hopefully a long way away from now, it'll be easy to find because it'll say, "Here lies that guy."
With a picture of your face.
picture of my face. Here lies that guy from that thing.
300 credits as well, just at the very bottom of it.
You know what? Let's shoot for 400. I'm gonna try for another 100.
You'll have to keep us up to date, Spencer, because all we'll do is me and Mike can keep an Excel file tracking it the whole way through.
Sure.
Now,
like
I have to ask, did you ever at any point think about being a newscaster?
No.
Bearing in mind, a lot of your credits are newscasters.
That's funny. Let's see. Well, For All Mankind.
Yep.
For sure. I played a version of I played Ron Moore and the guys that created that show. I played a version of a guy who was a longtime NBC broadcaster named Roger Mudd.
Yeah.
But they called him something else. There was another guy that played a wonderful character actor named Michael Harney, played a version of Walter Cronkite. But I remember early on playing a newscaster, and then I kind of got into this little niche of playing. I think I've played like 6 or 7 times.
And Spencer, if you look at all the different roles that you have, what are the kind of ones that you gravitate to more than others? And that might just be because of situation, circumstance, or which ones do you really like kind of being in?
I've always felt like I was kind of born in the wrong time. So I've always kind of gravitated more towards. I need another cup of coffee. I've always been drawn more towards period stuff for whatever reason. I've always felt like if I were an actor and I were around in the 40s and 50s, I would have fit right into that era. I love the clothes. I love the style of films. I was just watching a couple of film noir films last night. Those are the movies that I kind of grew up watching. I grew up not just the stuff from the 70s, but even before that, with my mom and even my dad watching, movies from the 30s and 40s. So I'm drawn to like period stuff, like Public Enemies, even like Bombshell, playing Sean Hannity, or something where I played Joseph McCarthy. I think I've played, you could probably figure this out faster than I, Mike, but I think I've played something like 12 real life characters, like 12 real people that are either still living or no longer living. But I like period stuff. I like stuff that takes place in another era, like going off to do this Western in a couple of weeks. I mean, that's what I love. One of the first jobs that I ever did was a Western, where I remember in my audition lying about being able to ride a horse, because I was 25 and the casting director said, "Can you ride?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? I grew up on a farm and ranch in Montana. I grew up, lassoing cattle and all of that. I was just crap was coming out of my mouth faster than I could process it." And before I knew it, I had the job and I was galloping at full speed down this hillside with 200 extras on horseback behind me. Your listeners can't see this, but I'm literally hanging on for dear life to this horse, and my hat flew off and I'm barely hanging on to the fucking horse. And the director, when he called cut, he pulled me aside and he said, "You little son of a bitch." And I said, "What?" He said, "You said you could ride." And I said, "Well, I did say I could ride. I didn't.
Since I could do well, I said I could do it."
He said, "You got the job, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And he said, "Well, I can't fire you now. We're too deep into this thing. Then we're going to do another take. Just hang on to that fucking horse for dear life. And just try to, you know how to act, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, just act like you know what you're doing." So that was it. And then right after that job was over, I went and took horseback riding lessons, which I'm about to do in 2 days. I'm actually going to take lessons again just so I can acclimate myself to being on a horse.
Before the Western in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I don't want to screw that one up.
And Spencer, in terms of then, say, like as you said, you've played 12 real life people. Do you find it hard to kind of do you trying to say, I'm just going to I'm going to put my own kind of spin on this, or are you saying I have to try and be them, try to adopt their mannerisms, their speech, and all that kind of thing?
It kind of depends. I mean, I look nothing like Joseph McCarthy, the senator, the red baiting senator from the 1950s. Looked nothing like him. It was a show called Timeless. I think I got offered the job on a Monday and I was on set in Vancouver on a Wednesday. I mean, he was bald and heavy set, and they must have had another actor who fell out or something. And they said, "Look, get Garrett. He's, we can get him cheap." And so I had to do a very quick amount of research in a very short amount of time, because I wanted to get his vocal cadence and I wanted to sound like him as much as I could. And they made me look like him as much as I possibly could. But for somebody like Sean Hannity and Bombshell, he's already, to me, a cartoon character. He's a parody of himself. So I just played him as him. And I remember watching, it was a brief little scene in Jay Roach's movie Bombshell with Charlize Theron, who was brilliant. And I mean, Sean Hannity is you watch him and you think there's nobody like this that could possibly exist on the planet. So, I mean, why not just have fun playing him? But in other cases, yeah, I try to put my own little spin on it. I try to bring my own little taste. I played Bob Woodward, the journalist Bob Woodward from Woodward and Bernstein.
Yep.
For Jason Reitman, for a movie called The Front Runner. And
that was with oh my God, Hugh Jackman, wasn't it?
Hugh Jackman.
That was brilliant, yeah.
Vera Farmiga, Alfred Molina played. Now, Alfred Molina played Ben Bradley, the editor of the Washington Post. Alfred Molina looks as much like Ben Bradley as you do. Absolutely nothing like Ben Bradley. So, and Jason was very specific. He said, "You don't have to sound like him. You don't have to move like him. I just want the essence of him."
Yeah.
And the one thing that I really wanted to do was Bob Woodward has a very, very distinctive way of speaking. He's got a very very flat Midwestern Chicago accent, and he talks very deliberately like this. And so I tried to bring that to my version of Woodward, and Jason pulled me aside after the first take. He's like, "Okay, the accent is great, but you got to speed it up a little bit." So it was a version of Bob Woodward. I met him about a year and a half ago at a wedding in Washington, D.C. And I went up to him and introduced myself. And I said, "Hi, you have no idea who I am, but I played you in the movie." And he's like, "You were fantastic. I saw the film and I just thought you were wonderful." So, I did my job.
How did the teaching come about? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or what was it exactly?
It was by accident. I studied with a man named Sanford Meisner, who was a pretty well-known teacher. He taught at a school in New York called the Neighborhood Playhouse. He was one of several teachers who were sort of an offshoot of a theater company in New York in the 30s called the Group Theater. And splintering off from those actors were Lee Strasberg and Stella Adler and Sanford Meisner and Bobby Lewis and Harold Clurman. All of these guys that were part of the Group Theater created their own version of. I mean, Stella Adler was sort of she taught Marlon Brando famously, and The Method. Lee Strasberg, obviously, the Actors Studio. Sanford Meisner was he kind of created his own style of teaching, and that's what I studied for 7 years with him. And so one of his students is a guy named John Ruskin, who started a theater school out here in Los Angeles. And one day John called me up. I'd gone to see several productions at their theater, and he called me up. He said, "You ever thought about teaching?" And I said, "Yeah, I actually have. I've never really pursued it." He said, "Well, I've got an opening. One of my teachers on the Saturday morning master class fell through. Can you jump in and give it a go?" And I had no experience at all. And I jumped in, and he's had people like David Mamet and Ed Asner and Dylan McDermott and the late Matthew Perry taught there. Wonderful actors that he's brought in to teach these master classes. And I taught a 3-hour class, and I walked out of there and I just loved it. And I said, "Anytime you need me, I'm yours." And so I've been doing it now for 15 years.
And
so
how often do you do it?
I do it. I try to do it at least twice a month if I can, if I'm available, if I'm around. I mean, it varies, but I try to do it a couple of times a month if I'm around. And then sometimes I'll just call them and say, "Hey, if you need me." I love it. And I love to see the students' enthusiasm. It's students from all multi-generations. It's kids in their 20s. And it's, I've got a guy in my class who's like a retired lawyer, who was like a retired lawyer from Long Island, whose lifelong dream was to be an actor. He's in his mid to late 50s now, and he's become like a working character actor. He moved out to LA, and he started taking classes, and now he's been working.
Oh my God, that's absolutely brilliant.
In fact, a quick, funny, crazy story. I'm on stage and I'm teaching this class of about 25 people, and I keep getting drawn to this one guy in the front row. And I said, "What's your name?" He said, Michael Littman. And I said, "Michael Littman, where'd you go to college?" And he said, "I went to Fordham University in New York City." And I said, "I went to Fordham." And all of a sudden it dawned on me, we were in the same class together. We took several classes together, and we actually hung out. We hadn't seen each other in 35 years, but all of a sudden he's sitting in the front row of my acting class, and in my mind's eye, I pictured him as this, 20-year-old kid, which was what we were when we met. And now he's like a 60-year-old guy who's a character actor. And so that's how small the world is, that this guy ends up in my class, and he's now a working actor. So
And Spencer, when you're doing the classes, like, what's your kind of main ethos in terms of what are you trying to impart upon people? Because obviously, you said it's going to be very different demographic. You're going to have people of different ages and all that kind of thing. So, do you try and tailor your message to the individual age groups, or is it just one message you're trying to get across to all of them?
It's not a method per se. It's really just getting them to kind of slot into their own way of working, which is to be simple and honest, and to listen, which to me is the essence of any good actor.
Whoa, hang on, Spencer. I have to interrupt you for a second there. I heard the word honesty, but I recall that you were on a film set, asked could you ride a horse, and you said you could.
No.
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
I was in an audition trying to get a job as a young green actor with no credits. And when they say, I mean, you fill out your resume and it's special skills. What can you do? I can play guitar. I can tap dance. I can juggle. I can walk on stilts. I can horseback ride. You put all this shit down and you think you're never going to get asked to walk on stilts and juggle. So I lied about my proficiency in horseback riding. I got the job, and I didn't really think that I was going to have to be like going at a full gallop over the side of a hill with 200 extras behind me. But that was a lesson that I learned. So yes,
Mike, I think
I was going to say what you're saying is if you had to horseback ride whilst juggling and wearing stilts, really.
Absolutely. You never know when that might come up, guys.
Mike, will you do me a favor when you're editing the episode, right? Edit in exactly the part where Spencer said all about his lies, and we'll send it on to his class and say, guys, review this before the next class at Spencer, please.
I had an audition once for a McDonald's commercial, and my agent called me up and said, "Can you juggle?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." No, couldn't juggle. I could juggle maybe, two balls.
As well as you could horseback ride.
He's like, really, how well can you juggle? And I'm like, how well do I have to juggle in this commercial? And probably pretty well. So I said, okay, book me on the audition. By the time, and this was like 2 days later. And so I went to my friend's backyard and I plucked 4 grapefruits off of his tree in the backyard, threw them in a paper sack, went home and sat in my shitty little apartment in the Hollywood Hills, practicing how to juggle grapefruits, right? Got pretty good at it. I go to the audition. I'm in the waiting room and there's a guy with a chainsaw and a bowling ball. And there's a guy juggling a chainsaw, a bowling ball, and a ping pong ball while he's eating an apple at the same time. And I got my little sack of grapefruits. So I go into the room and they line us all up and they go, okay, you juggle. The guy with the chainsaw, he's juggling, he's doing this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I wanted to disappear into the wall. And I thought, well, I can't just run out of the room. I got to give this a go, right? You never know what happened. So they finally got to me. There was like 5 people. Everybody's just killing it with the juggling. I get my little paper bag out. I pull out the grapefruits and I juggle and within seconds there's grapefruit juice on the floor. And the casting director says, how long have you been juggling? And I said, off and on now for about a day. You guys are going to be shocked to learn this, but I didn't book the McDonald's commercial.
But that's just outrageous.
This is Hollywood.
It's outrageous. I know. I could have gone on to major fame and fortune. And the guy, the bowling ball chainsaw guy, was looking at me like, "You schmuck. Who do you think you are, coming into my world with your grapefruits?" But you gotta try, right? You gotta give it a try.
What's it? Fake it till you make it, isn't it? Unless you have to juggle in front of her.
That's right. That's a good. I mean, there's a good chunk of that is involved in our business. So, have I learned how to juggle more proficiently since then? A little.
But maybe I needed to be able to juggle since then.
I have not needed to be, but if I were called on an audition now, and somebody said, "Can you audition?" I would say, "You know what? I'm going to respectfully pass."
Oh man, I was going to say, but Spencer juggle tree flipping apples while he's on the podcast with us now at the moment, but it's just not going to happen.
You know those guys that, like, in midair, they take a bite of the apple while they're juggling it. That's the guy that got the McDonald's commercial. And I remember, like, sitting in my apartment, like, unemployed, broke, doing bong hits, watching television, seeing the McDonald's commercial go on, and I go,
"That could have been me."
Could have been me.
That guy is Spencer.
But you know what? Where is he now? Where is that guy now?
He's probably watching TV.
Credits?
He's probably watching TV every night and pointing at TV going, that guy was in the fucking room there. He couldn't juggle.
He's probably sitting in his shitty little apartment doing bong hits, watching me on television going, God, I could have been Spencer Garrett.
Watching the Spencer Garrett TV station on Pluto TV, which airs all Spencer Garrett all the time, all 240 credits.
Doubtful.
Yeah. Spencer, have you noticed much in the way of change in terms of, say, the types of people that you're kind of teaching in the last couple of years, like in terms of, say, how cultures change, how society have changed, what people's expectations are, and things like that? Like,
it's interesting. I feel like there was, when I first started doing it maybe 15 years ago, because the business has changed so dramatically in the last 15 years. In the last 3 years, in the last 2 years, since the strike, it's changed a lot. And the ground is always kind of shifting under your feet. I mean, remember VHS? And I mean, it's like the technologies change and all of these. So yeah, when I first started teaching, I think there was a propensity on the part of a lot of the kids that I was teaching. They just wanted to be famous. They wanted to be, I don't know if you guys know what the CW is, but they wanted to be on the next Dawson's Creek, the next One Tree Hill. They wanted to be the younger kids. They were more interested in kind of a quick trip up the ladder, so to speak. And I came in with my armful of books of Shakespeare and Chekhov and Ibsen, and I'm from an old school where you have to learn the classics, and you have to know your theater history, and you've got to be prepared. LA is not regarded as a theater town, but any good actor worth their salt gets their training in the theater on stage. And then and a lot of actors simply stay theater actors. There's a lot of wonderful regional theater actors across, theaters across, North America. And they are terrific at what they do. And they don't necessarily have aspirations beyond that. Chicago is a massive pool of great actors in the theater. And every once in a while, some of them will break through, like a Steppenwolf Theater Company, where a lot of those guys in the 80s, John Malkovich and Gary Sinise and Laurie Metcalf, and they all came out, and that was just an explosion of talent. So that actually is the group of actors that made me want to be an actor. When I saw the Steppenwolf Theater Company in New York in the mid 80s, and I saw Gary Sinise and John Malkovich do a Sam Shepard play called True West. That was one of the things that made me the light bulb moment where I went, oh, wow, that, I walked into the theater and they were blasting Bruce Springsteen music and Tom Waits and Ricky Lee Jones and these muscular, and by that I mean it was rock and roll, visceral, raw, honest, just true theater. And it was so beautifully done. And you couldn't help but walk out of the theater and go, I'm inspired by that. I want to see if I can get some of that. So that's what kind of started me. So I say to I say to my students from all walks of life. I mean, the retirees and the students and the people that are just starting out at middle age. If you're good, you're good, and art will find a way. To quote my friend Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Life finds a way.
Ironically, I watched that yesterday.
Oh yeah, so good.
I've just done a rewatch of all of them because I'm going to go and see the new one later this week. So I thought I better go.
Oh yeah, they're doing. In fact, they're doing the same thing at the Hollywood Bowl that they did with Jaws.
They're the live orchestra. Yeah,
live orchestra. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
So Spencer, will I be vicariously living through your experience of seeing that on the weekend on Instagram again this time round?
You very well. You may very well, but I might have to miss that because I might have to be. I might be on a horse somewhere
while juggling in stilts
on a mountain in Utah.
Spencer, in terms of say, like you're an actor, you're a teacher, you're an educator, and all that. Have you done directing? And if not, why not?
I've directed a bunch of theater, a little bit in New York, some out here. I was part of a theater company for a long time called Naked Angels. I've directed some theater pieces out here in LA. I haven't directed any film or television, and that's been on my bucket list for a long time. I did a show. I recurred on a show years ago called Invisible Man on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I did a thing I trailed several directors that were directing these episodes, and I went to the producers and I said, I've trailed several of these directors, and I'd love a crack at directing one. And I was given the gift of, they said, next season when we come back, we're going to put you in the queue and you're going to direct one. And then I got canceled. So and I've trailed several other wonderful directors since then. Every once in a while, I'm lucky enough that I get a lot of repeat business from people like Jonathan Frakes and wonderful director named Adam Arkin and Dan Sackheim, and directors that have used me a lot. And so I will if I am able to be available, I will trail them just to absorb when my time comes. But I want to. It's gotten to be a different ball game to crack into now. As a middle-aged white guy, to break into directing is a tricky prospect now.
And Spencer, how do you find that the TV landscape has changed? Because obviously, like with TV now, we've kind of moved huge into the streaming world of like 7, 8, 9, 10 episodes. Because obviously you were in The Residence recently as well, which unfortunately isn't going to be returning to our screens anytime soon. And like, there's been given a lot of opportunity to say, we'll say, for instance, what was it? It was The Sinner, I think it was. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon were leading it, and you've got a lot of
Sirens.
Sirens, that's it. Yes. But you're seeing a lot more kind of shows with there's a lot more shows out there and things like that. Do you find that's better, or do you think it's kind of, say, not necessarily worse?
I used to say that I thought that we were kind of in a golden age of television. I mean, which kind of started kind of with The Sopranos and with the HBO really becoming kind of the premier place to do that kind of cinematic work on television. And that's obviously just grown. And I mean, I did a thing a couple of years ago called Winning Time about the Lakers, talking about playing real life people. I played a man named Chick Hearn, who was the voice of the Lakers. He was the broadcaster for 40 years. And I was covered in latex and prosthetics playing this guy. And it was a very, very starry cast. We had John C. Reilly and Adrian Brody and Sally Field and Jason Segel, and it was every episode of that show was a multi-million-dollar feature film. And so that's kind of the landscape that we're into now. Sadly, that didn't go beyond that didn't go for a third season, but because some of these things are just too expensive to make. Yeah. So it's streaming is the thing now. Clearly, I think network television is really kind of on life support. Unfortunately, like the good old fashioned stuff, the NCISs and the CSIs and things like that are becoming fewer and farther between, and everything's moving into the streaming space because there's so many outlets for it now.
And do you find for someone like yourself, Spencer, a character actor, do you find there's, as a result of that, because of the fact there's far more churn in terms of instead of 26 episodes starting in September, ending in April, you've now got like 10 episode series that'll since consecutive run. Do you think there's more opportunities out there as a result then?
I think so. Yeah, it's the business is really kind of going through some growing pains right now after the strike. Los Angeles, Hollywood is really just barren right now, and a lot of the work has moved to Canada. It's gone back to Vancouver and Toronto and out to Atlanta and a lot of the states that offer tax incentives. And so it's very eerie to see studios here that are virtually empty. So it's going to be interesting to see if those things come back to life, if the business comes back to life. California just did a big $750 million tax incentive to bring production back to here. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. But it's as an actor, as somebody who's just primarily a jobber, a journeyman actor, you gotta go where the work is. So it's kind of an iffy time right now.
So have you found that a lot of character actors have moved away from LA to chase the?
I have. I mean, a lot of folks have moved to Atlanta. A lot of my several friends I know have moved to Atlanta, where there's higher concentration of work.
Yeah.
And they can be local there. And I have two. Eric McCormack, who was on Will and Grace for years and years and years, Canadian-born. I think a combination of more work opportunities in Canada and the fact that he was just so disheartened by what's been happening here in the country politically. So he just packed up and left. And several of my Canadian friends have packed up and left. So it's a very strange time over here, guys. I mean, with ICE raids and all of that, it feels like we're in, we're kind of in this strange sort of bubble where we're trying to carry on with our lives. And then you turn on the news and all of a sudden you feel like you're in 1930s Germany. It's a very bizarre, very, very bizarre.
Yeah. And Spencer, I have to ask you that because I saw you putting up on the weekend, because we saw the bad news of the late great Julian McMahon as well, who was who you were working with recently. What was he like? Because I loved him in Nip Tuck. I loved him in Fantastic. Everything he was in, he just brought
charmed everything. I was it's funny. He has this certain actors just kind of change the DNA of the room when they walk in. And I'd never met him before. I was a fan of Nip Tuck. Dylan Walsh, his co-star from that show, is an old friend of mine. And I was a huge fan of that show. And when he walked onto the set, you could feel the molecules shifting. He had such a kind of a presence. Beautiful looking guy, but also just really, really funny. And I had no idea he's Australian.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And he was playing the Australian Prime Minister in The Residence. And I was like, wow, this guy does a great Australian accent. Well, it turns out his father or grandfather, I guess, was the Prime Minister of Australia. And he grew up an Aussie and then moved over here quite young. But I think his father was somewhere high up in the political realm in Australia. But it was weird to hear him just when we were sitting around in our chairs in Video Village or whatever in between takes, to hear him talk, because he's got this really thick Australian accent. I would do an Australian accent, but it's as good as my juggling. So I'm gonna. Just a lovely guy. I mean, he did a couple of episodes with us, and there were a couple of Aussies, and they're really like, they're just this. There's just something about that breed of guys. There were all these real kind of guys. So they all kind of ran around together as a pack, but Julian was lovely. And, we lost also, I don't know if you knew this, but we started out filming the show with a wonderful actor named Andre Braugher.
Yeah.
And Andre, after the strike, we came back, and Andre sadly passed of cancer at 61. Julian was 56. So it's we have an expression over here, fuck cancer. So I say fuck cancer. It was very, very, very shocking, very sad.
One of Julian's big starts would have been in an Australian soap called Home and Away, which is absolutely massive over in Ireland and the UK.
Really? I feel like that's a rite of passage for every.
Chris and
Neighbours.
Russell Crowe and
Liam Hemsworth, I think, got their big break.
The Hemsworths and who else? Russell Crowe, Nicole Kidman. I feel like every good. Who's the guy? Simon Baker, I think, was on that, and I mean, it's like your calling card. Like for an American actor, for me starting out, it was Matlock and Murder, She Wrote, and like these jobs that you did as kind of your rite of passage.
You see, Spencer, the thing is, at times, whenever I write down the introductions for some of our guests, and I go back through IMDb and I look at the shows that they're on, and I write the introduction, I give it to Mike, I'm always there going, does Mike even know what these shows actually are? Because I'm a bit older than Mike, so I grew up watching things like Matlock and Murder, She Wrote.
How old are you, Joe?
I'm 42, and
42.
Mike, you are the grand total of
34.
Yes. So yeah.
But yes, I know most.
No, you don't, Mike. You don't. Just you can't lie to Spencer. This is a very honest conversation. There's no lies.
I know Murder, She Wrote. I know Air Force One. I know West Wing. I know CSI, Law and Order, NCIS 24. I never watched Supernatural, but I know of it. I love Yes Man.
Air Force One, by the way, it's funny. I watched it. It was on the other night, and I'm not. I feel like when I say this, one of those, Gloria Swanson and Sunset Boulevard, watching old clips of yourself. But I was flipping around and I couldn't find anything good to watch. And Air Force One was on because it seems to always be on. Mm-hmm. And like Law and Order over here. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to watch it. It was about to start. And I was, 27, 28, something like that. I forget. And that's just, and I think of that, I refer to that as my first movie, even though it really wasn't my first movie, but it was my first time kind of getting invited to sit at the grown-ups table. It was really my first big whopping Hollywood movie, and to be thrown in with that crowd with Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman. And, but I'd already had a good several years of work behind me already, but that's kind of the one that I look to as the thing that kind of jump-started everything for me in about 94. That's when things really started to kick into gear. Before that, I was bopping around. I was doing a job here and a job there and waiting tables and tending bar and doing all those things until things started to really kind of click. But Air Force One.
Spencer, I have to ask then, because we've just kind of touched on it briefly, but how good are your accents? Outside of the Irish and the Aussie ones, which I've we heard the Irish one just before filming started, which I'm pretty sure I have to report to the Irish government for crimes against Ireland.
Yeah, it's nearly as good as mine.
I can do a great Irish accent. I can do several different British dialects. I'm pretty good at accents. Yeah, it's funny. This Western, it takes place in Australia. We're shooting it in Utah. They shot the first half of the movie in Australia. The second half we're shooting in the mountains in Utah that look like Australia. They asked me if I would do an Australian accent, and I said, you got the wrong guy. If you want, I don't want to screw up your movie. So I said, if you want to make me British, I can make him an upper class Brit, but I don't want to do an Aussie accent. So, but my accents are pretty good. I like to pride myself that I'm.
Spencer, you can't say that now without backing it up, without giving us your upper class Brit right here on the podcast.
Okay, what do you want to hear?
Upper class Brit for definite.
Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York.
Well,
all the clouds that lowered upon our house into the deep bosom of the ocean buried.
That is quite an accent, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Now, Spencer, you have to give us the Irish one. If you're going to do the Brits, you have to do the Irish. There's no getting away with it.
Well, what region of Ireland do you want? Do you want like Northern Ireland? Do you want Dublin?
Oh no,
I want Northern Ireland.
No, God no. We want West Cork. We need
West
the
Cork.
South.
Oh, you want West Cork? It's a flatter like West. Oh, you want West Cork? Now is the winter of our discontent made glorious summer by the son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon it. That's Richard III, as a Mick. How's that? Did I pass?
It's better than your juggling, anyhow. I'll definitely give it that. For this.
Wow.
That's the best compliment you're ever going to get, Spencer. In this
Okay, it's better than your juggling.
It's better than most of the accents in Fairhaven. We'll give you that
Thanks. You put me on the spot, man. What can I say? If I had a little more practice, I got to roll into my Irish a little bit.
So Spencer, what we'll do then is when the Cads book comes out later in the year, we'll bring you back on, and you can prepare the accents properly, and we can get you to do a dramatic reading of your stories in your West Brit and your Irish accent.
I'll fucking do it. You know I will. You know what I hate is okay. I mean, you look at that god awful Far and Away with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is single-handedly responsible for putting the bad reputation of American actors doing bad Irish accents. Because he was like, "Oh, Shannon McGillicuddy, you're a corker, yar." You know, Lucky Charms. It's like, oh, God,
do you know what we call that over here, Spencer?
Shit.
No.
That too.
We always call it the Irish, so it's OIRISH. Yeah, that's what we always say. Whenever we hear the bad impersonation, it's always the Irish. The Irish.
You won't catch me doing the Irish. Manly, yes, but I like it too.
You sound like a little leprechaun.
Like a little leprechaun. Lucky Charms.
Pretty sure this episode will never be broadcast in Ireland under any circumstances. It'll just be big bleeps.
That's all on top. Now I'm gonna get letters from,
I'll send it on to the family down in West Cork, Spencer, and just say, "Look, guys, this is what's going on here. Like, how can you let this man ever into the country again?"
Warning signs at Dublin Airport: banned for life. Do not
banned for life.
This man. Spencer, we have to ask you about Star Trek because it wouldn't be a Star Trek podcast if we didn't at some point. Am I right?
Wait a minute. But why do you have? I noticed you have. Are you a dual citizen of Star Trek and Star Wars? Because I see you have the Millennium Falcon behind you,
and I have the Batmobile, and I have
the Batmobile. Oh wow!
Car, and I have an X-wing.
X-wing.
Yes.
I have a Millennium Falcon and some droids over that side. You can't see.
How many parsecs did the Kessel run? Was it
12?
12?
12
because parsecs is time now, apparently.
Actually, wait a second. Hang on a second. Before we do all that, right? Before we even talk about the nonsense that is Star Trek, right? Yeah. Spencer, how long did you work in the Star Wars galaxy?
In the Star Wars galaxy? About an hour.
So for Knights of the Old Republic, I believe, is the video game, yes?
Knights of the Old Republic, Darth Revan was the character. And I had this very dark, sinister... I was trying to sound like James Earl Jones a little bit. But yeah, it's wild. That thing has had such a wonderful life. And literally, I get these... I don't know how they find me. I don't know how they get my address, my home. But every once in a while, I will get in the mail a long box, about a foot long, and it's flat. And they send me the folded up box of the Funko.
Yeah,
that is the Darth Revan character, with about 100 people. They get a little ambitious and a little greedy. Sometimes I got one the other day, and it was like somebody sent me 100 Darth Revan cards. Would you sign them, and would you sign Spencer Garrett, as Darth Revan? And I open up the thing, and it's 100. It's 100. I'll sign the outside of the Funko box. But then I open up these 100 baseball cards. I'm like, come on, man, fuck off. Are you kidding me? Spend an hour. But anyway.
You should charge them $100 per card.
I do it for the kids. I love it. I it's very sweet to be thought of. And I never in a million years thought, I'd never even seen the game. It's shameful. I've never even seen the video game. I should probably give it a go one time. I've never even heard. Is it bad?
No, it's not bad. It's absolutely brilliant. It's just the controls are very old because it's a 90s game. So like it's very kind of like they were talking about redoing it recently, like updating it with current graphics and all that, but that completely fell by the wayside. But everybody was really excited.
You can still buy it on Steam.
Yeah,
you can buy it. I have it on the Nintendo Switch and all that kind of thing. Like anyone who's ever said anything about it, Spencer, they're basically there. It's the best Star Wars game ever created. So you're part of the best Star Wars game that has been ever made.
Good to know.
Spencer, is your godfather Liam Sullivan by any chance?
Yes.
And did he? Was he?
Stepchildren.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And the name of his character, you guys would remember.
Oh Jesus!
You call yourself a Star Trek?
Damn it! What? I surely have written on somewhere. Mike, quickly Google it, Mike, as fast as you can.
Or I forget. He was the guy that was like controlling the little person, Michael Dunn, around on the chessboard.
Oh bollocks!
Plato's stepchild.
That's all. That was all I knew of Star Trek. So if we're going to get into that territory, that's all I knew of Star Trek when I got that gig, when I auditioned for the job to play Simon Tarses. I was not a fan of the show. I wasn't not a fan. I just was not. It was not in my radar. And so.
But how did the audition come up then, Spencer?
The audition came up. So what year did you say? 91?
91, yeah.
So 91, the audition came up. My agent called and said, it's Star Trek. TNG was a huge hit. And I think it was season
4.
Oh, season 4. Okay. See, long time ago. Season 4. I should know this. But I went in and I read, and I really had no frame of reference. I was looking around for reruns on television, and I watched a couple of episodes. I literally, it's one of those things. You get the call on Monday, and you've got an audition on Wednesday, so you got Tuesday to prepare. So I remember calling my godfather Liam, going to a video store, buying a copy of his episode of TOS.
Parman, I think Parman is his name.
Parman.
Yep.
So I remember, and I bought a copy of his episode of Plato's Stepchildren that was on a VHS, which is what was the technology at the time. I watched that show.
Sorry, Spencer, to interrupt you for a second. Mike, it's happened again. Every episode.
It's twice now. He's done it twice.
What? Oh, my God, he hasn't.
Yeah, he mentioned VHS earlier.
Oh, my God, this is outrageous. Spencer, there's at some point in our interviews, someone ages the podcast by referencing something that a lot of our younger audience will never have heard of. And VHS is always a big winner because
VHS is, that was you could tell your listeners. It was on a tape. You put a cassette tape into a machine, and that's how you watched it. And then I think we went from VHS to like Laserdisc and DVD and.
Well, Laserdisc never really picked up. It kind of died.
Yeah. And I have a massive VHS collection because for many reasons, but a lot of my early stuff is on VHS. And also, I became a member of the Motion Picture Academy, like voting for the Oscars several years ago. And before DVD technology, it was VHS. And so the Academy would send you all of the feature films that were out that year. So I've got several hundred on VHS. So I've got VHS and DVD, and now it's all digital. Now they just stream it to your television set. But so I remember calling my godfather, Liam, and I said, I got this audition for a Romulan. What the fuck is a Romulan? Like, do you have any idea how a Romulan is supposed to act? Sorry, can I don't need to swear so much.
Oh my God, he sweared. Oh, Jesus Christ, Mike, the episode's over. Oh, no.
What are we going to do?
Fucking hell, fucking disgrace, like. Especially for an Irish person to curse, it's a fucking disgrace.
I know.
Spencer,
swear away,
okay,
sir.
You're
Swear
okay. A clattering. I spotted it. I said, "Is that a clattering on his hand or not?" There it is now.
I'm legit, man. I'm OG. But I really had no frame of reference. So I remember going into the audition, and Frakes was directing.
Yeah.
And he was lovely, and there were like 20 guys there in the waiting room, and I knew half of them, and they were all kind of doing their thing off in the corner, running their lines. And I just remember having a good feeling. You never know as an actor when you're in an audition room, you have no idea how it's going. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. In this particular instance, I felt like I was in a good zone and I was doing something right. And Frakes gave me a couple of adjustments, and it was one of those things where I there were no cell phones back then, but I remember like going to my car on the Paramount lot, driving to a payphone, calling my agent, and my agent said, this is like within an hour, my agent said, you got it.
Wow.
And you got a fitting tomorrow, and you starting in a couple of days. And so that was a great, but I still, I didn't know that. I remember the first time I did the scene with Patrick Stewart in his quarters. And I remember really thinking in that one scene with him where we're sitting across from each other having tea. And I remember thinking, I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. I'm going to blow them all away. And so I really worked up the tears, and I'm really just getting emotional. And I'm this young kid on this spaceship that's blown up, and I'm being put on trial, and I'm just going to cry because my career in Starfleet is over. And I really brought up the tears, and we did the scene, and the cut. There's a lot of conversation, and Frakes pulled me aside. He's like, that was really good. That's you got to save that for another show. And I said, why? He said, because a Romulan wouldn't cry. A Romulan, even though it was like a quarter Romulan, he's like, there's that quarter part of you that just wouldn't cry. You wouldn't be that emotional. So we had to go back and do it again without the tears. So I'm not really wild about, I will be honest with you guys, because you guys are fans of the show. It is not one that I regard as my finest hour performance wise.
Really?
I was very green. And not only did I not have any frame of reference for what a quarter Romulan was, I mean, it was quarter Romulan, half Vulcan, something. And I was kind of adrift, and Patrick Stewart was a great anchor for me. He was somebody that I grew up revering. I remember watching him. There was an old PBS show called Acting Shakespeare with John Barton. And Patrick Stewart was part of the RSC with Judi Dench and wonderful actors. So I grew up watching Patrick Stewart. So he was already he had such dynamism and such presence. And so he kind of put me on the right path a little bit. But I was very, I still hadn't found my style. And it was very, very early on in my career. So I was very, very green. My performance was okay. If I could go back in a time machine and do it over again, I know what I would change.
What would you change?
I mean, I was trying too hard. I was working too hard, in my opinion. I look at that young boy now, and I see him in those scenes with Gene Simmons when I'm on trial, and the scenes with Patrick Stewart, and I was working a little too hard, and I hadn't quite learned how to settle down and be simple. I hadn't found that yet. And I think it was because it was written as such an emotional scene. It was a parable. It was a parable about the AIDS epidemic at the time, which was still very much rampant, in the world. And so it was a very powerful piece of writing. And I think I took that to heart, and I was really trying too hard to act. Was trying to act, and that's the worst sin that you can commit as an actor, is to get caught acting. So when I see myself now, I look at that, and So now everybody that's listening is going to go back and look at it. Go, oh my God, he's
Watching it
fucking
tonight now.
terrible.
When was it's out of curiosity, Spencer? When was the last time you watched it?
I watched it with my girlfriend's son about a year ago, who is a big Star Trek fan, and I was doing some conventions. I was going to conventions in Vegas, and he'd asked me to get him Shatner's autograph, which I did. He's a delight, and I remember, and Jonah hadn't seen it, and I sat down with him and watched it, and he was like, at that point I was a 50-something-year-old man, and back then I was this kid, and so it was strange to watch him watch me, and I was watching, and now he wants to be an actor, and so it was interesting because I was telling him in the moment while we were watching what I thought I would have done differently as an actor. Yeah. And now he's that 14-year-old kid who wants to be an actor for a living.
And Spencer, did you think like 34 years ago when you were making that you'd still be here talking about that one episode of The Next Generation and all that? And like, are you surprised by, as you said, you've done conventions and all that, are you surprised by, say, the love of Star Trek fans?
I'm not surprised now, but I was surprised in a really beautiful way. I was surprised because even before I'd started doing conventions, I've only done a couple of them, but I get recognized for that more than anything else in the States, in Europe. I've been recognized in London and Paris. I mean, for whatever reason, people go do a double take. Simon Tarses, it's bananas. And I love that. But when I did conventions, the first one that I did was, I want to say about six years ago. What was the 50th anniversary of
that was 2016. Yeah,
9 years ago. So 2016. So that's when I did it. In 2016, went to Vegas, and I was stunned at the response to people coming up to me. Where have you been? How come you haven't been here before? And it gave me a new appreciation for the show that I still have, because I've since become a fan. I did Voyager a few years later.
Yeah.
And I really became a fan of the show. And I'm sure at this point now I've seen every episode of every iteration of the show, from Enterprise to Discovery and Picard and all of it. I've watched all of it. Friends of mine that direct it, that are on it. And so my character Simon has been in a couple of books, I think. So yes. I had a newfound appreciation for it. But the thing that I found most heartening and lovely was the people that came up to me and said, I just want to say thank you for doing that show, because I saw in your character this guy who was an outsider and had been ostracized and otherized, and you were kind of put on trial. It was sort of a metaphor for how I felt growing up, and I felt kind of separate, and it dawned on me really in 2016 when I was doing that convention how much Star Trek is about community, and the fans are a great community. There's just a love for the show, and it's interesting. This one guy that I befriended, he's this lovely guy who since I've become very good friends with since 2016. I met him at the convention, and he's this gay man. He came up to me, and he had Leonard Nimoy's autograph tattooed on his arm, and I'm like, wow, you're all in. And he said, I just want to tell you, he said, as a gay kid growing up in the Midwest, and being a Star Trek fan, he said, I felt like I was other, and Star Trek made me feel the way it was written. There was something about it that was about community. If you look at each episode, There's something very specific about whether it's the politics of it. It does have it, to me, as kind of a decidedly liberal slant. So it tackles certain subjects in outer space that we deal with here on Earth in a really profound way, and that was not something I was aware of before.
Yeah, like it's what Star Trek does at its absolute best is when it presents us ideas and you look at it from in the space sense and you're kind of going, that's utterly ridiculous. Why would these people do X, Y, or Z? But it's happening here on Earth, literally outside your front door, and you don't even see that it's actually happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Spencer, how, like, obviously, you've been on the Next Gen and all that kind of thing. When, like, had you wanted to try and get back on when you got back onto Voyager, or how did that one come about?
Voyager came about, I think it was, you can tell me, how many years after TNG?
7, 8, Mike, was it Fresh and Blood?
I want to say.
When I did Voyager, I think at that point, my friend Brandon Braga was involved with Voyager. Brandon Braga and Ken Biller, who were both good friends at that time.
9 years, Spencer. 9 years difference.
9 years. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was 10. I knew it was closer to 10. So 9 years later, I was offered this episode of Voyager, and I think enough time had passed between the two shows where I could come back, because I wasn't what they called a rubberhead. I wasn't covered in latex, and I didn't have I looked like me. I looked like Spencer Garrett, but I had the little ears, which I still have down in my office.
Oh, no way.
I had several pairs of ears that Mike Westmore made for me over the course of the TNG episode, little latex ears that they would glue on. And I think I have 4 or 5 pairs left. They're getting a little crusty, but
they do deteriorate.
They don't keep very well. But I got the offer for Voyager, and the guy was a hologram. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think he was and enough time had passed where they were comfortable enough bringing me back in, and that was a terrific experience. Except for, I remember there was a scene where I was underwater. Yeah. And we were on this lake on the Warner Brothers lot. And I had to come up out of the water with this gun, and the water was really cold, and we were shooting early in the morning. So the water was very cold early in the morning, and I got very sick. I got the flu a couple of days after we shot that. So I was working sick throughout that, but it was still a great experience. Jeff Yeager, who was in that episode, became a great pal. Robert Picardo became a great friend. So, you make these, you meet people on these jobs, and you form sometimes lifelong relationships.
Actually, you mentioned Brandon Bragg and Ken Biller. We had them on here actually because we were doing a major series of interviews for Voyager's 30th anniversary. So we had we both had them on in the last couple of months as well. Nice. Yeah, did
you find them the same way you found me?
Spencer, we will try every humanly way. Like, I put it like this, right? Without naming the actor, I chased down an actor's spouse and sent her a message because I was there. Listen, I can't find your husband any other way. Would you mind asking him would he come on the show? And I'm expecting a restraining order in the post when she eventually sees the message.
What you got to do.
Got to do what you got to do. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Spencer, if you were offered a chance to come back onto Star Trek, what would you like to play?
I'd like to play Simon Tarses.
Really?
Sure. If he's still alive, I'd like to play him. I'd like to play him now. If there was and there was some little bit of discussion about that, not on, what was the other one that was not Picard? What's the one that Michelle Hurd was doing? Was it Picard?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think, and I'd spoken to LeVar a couple of years ago when he was directing in Toronto. And there was a brief little mumblings about the possibility of bringing Simon back. I was like, it would be a great idea. And he's like, that's amazing. Because that's where I met LeVar in 91. So I think they had floated the idea of that. and LeVar was directing, and Frakes was directing and acting in, and so there was a possibility of bringing Tarses back, which would have been an absolute blast. So that's what I'd love to, because I'd love to obviously love another crack at him being
older
and now being like, I'd like to think I'm a better actor than I am now than I was then. So I'd like to take another shot at Simon Tarses.
And Spencer, do you think in your own mind, do you have an idea where Simon would be in his life, or would you just be there going, whatever the writers think he is, I'd be happy with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I
know he's a lieutenant now.
He's a what?
He's a lieutenant now.
He probably lieutenant. I would hope that
he's a lieutenant.
What was I? It was an ensign.
Ensign.
No, he's Freeman.
Yeah.
Crewman, is he?
Freeman.
Listen, it's been no pips. It's 34 years. I should be an admiral by now. Simon Tarses. So if you know anybody, can talk to them. Simon Tarses should 1,000% be an admiral.
Let's get on to Brannon Braga. We'll ask him if he's going to write a new script and put him in as an admiral and things like that. Spencer, obviously, look, in terms of one of the questions we always ask our guests is like, what is next for them? But obviously, we know full well you're literally flying out tonight to film Law and Order tomorrow. You're doing your Western in Utah. You're writing a book. Like, Spencer, like, what is, like, obviously directing is also in the future. What is there that you haven't done that you're there going, I really want to do X, Y, or Z?
Well, probably Broadway. I mean, it's been 35 years since I've done anything on Broadway. I've done a bunch of theater. I've done a lot of theater, but I came very close to being in Good Night and Good Luck, the George Clooney play.
Oh, yeah.
And it was one of those things where, it's down to you and another guy. And the guy that ended up getting it, Clark Gregg. I don't know if Clark has done any Star Trek. You know Clark Gregg? He's big in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Coulson.
Agent Coulson. Yeah.
Coulson. Clark's a buddy of mine. He ended up getting the gig in the play. So that's a big bucket list thing, is to find myself in a Broadway play before too long. I need that feather in my cap so I can finally say. When I met Sandy Meisner for the first time, he said to the class, it takes 20 years to become an actor. And everybody sort of shrugged and groaned and rolled their eyes and went, 20 years? I don't have 20 years. Going back to me teaching my students, I said that to the kids. I said, it takes 20 years before you can call yourself an actor. Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, oh, God. And, and it's true. It's true. It took me 20 years. I want to say I started really in earnest when I was about 24, 25. So by the time I was 45, I was just finding my groove. And so I think I'm just getting good at it. And so I've got miles to go before I sleep, and there's a lot more I want to do before I hang up my cleats, as I say. And Broadway's definitely one of them, for sure.
And Spencer, if I'm the only person saying it, please write a book about your life in Hollywood. Please, for the love of God, I would love to read it.
That would be a great play on Broadway.
Fucking would, yeah.
The Spencer Garrett story?
Yeah. 300 not out, you can call it. 100%.
You're going to get 9 people to come see the Spencer Garrett story.
I will fly to New York.
Me and Mike will be there. We'll be 100% there for sure.
Right. 11.
We'll be
11 there. Guys. Okay, 11 people. That would be great.
Mike, I think we've one special question left for Spencer.
Indeed. Spencer Garrett.
Do a speed round? What?
Yeah. Spencer Garrett, what does Star Trek mean to you?
If I could say one word, beginnings. For me personally, just on the trajectory of my life and my career, I look back and, watching the show with my girlfriend's son a little while back, seeing that young, green, unformed actor attempting to fit into this very, very foreign world, and kind of fumfering my way through that, episode that I did, and the fact that it has become an iconic episode. I've got downstairs in my office. I should have brought it up. Somebody, like a fan, sent me there's a Simon Tarses action figure. You want to see it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Give me 30 seconds. I should have brought up. Give me 30 seconds. I'll run
Go
down
for
to the office.
Yeah.
Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves. Ready?
Yeah.
You ready for this?
Let's see what we got.
Oh, it's boxed as well.
It's boxed. Look at that.
It's boxed.
Oh.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Is it blurry?
If you put it in front of your face.
Okay.
Because then the camera might.
Oh, it's only there it is. There it is. Yeah, we can see it perfectly. Yeah. Oh my god.
Very green.
Yeah, in fairness, the uniform was kind of greeny bluey. Yeah.
Because they have the blur on?
Yeah.
Hang on, let me see it. How do I turn the blur off? Here we go.
It'd be under video.
Video, hang on. This is important. Where the hell is it?
We are getting a good view of it actually as you're moving around, Spencer.
Okay.
Actually.
Well, so on the back, it's like a baseball card almost. So on the back,
oh wow,
Simon Tarses, crewman first class, medical technician. Simon Tarses was a human Romulan hybrid male who enlisted and served in Starfleet. Blah blah blah. It goes on and on and on. I mean, it's very written by Jerry Taylor, directed by Jonathan Frakes, guest stars Bruce French, Spencer Garrett, Gene Simmons, and Henry Warrenitz. And
wow.
So a fan made this and sent this to me, and I treasure it. And so the answer to your question, Mike, if you had told a 20-whatever-year-old me in 1991 that who really was so unsure of what I was getting myself into in the business, and really wanting to try to make a mark with this particular show because of the kind of the legacy of my godfather, and who was a wonderful, wonderful actor and a great influence on me and a big father figure to me, really in many, many ways. And so looking back on that and seeing where I've come 34 years later, if you told me then that somebody would be making an action figure of me, this is, you can't find this in a store. Like, this guy actually made this for
Ironically,
me.
I found him on Facebook.
Oh, you did? The guy?
Yeah.
What is it?
Day Sleeper's custom Star Trek figure.
That's it.
Because he posted photos.
He made several of these for me, and I gave one to Frakes and one to LeVar. That piece of memorabilia downstairs in my office, I've got posters from all the movies and things and stuff I've been in, and that's all great. But the fact that this particular fan took the time to do this and took such great care with it, that's a lot to live up to. And that means more to me than anything. So it's the beginnings of my life as an actor, and trying to get better as an actor over the years, and looking back. But that's the kernel of of what I've become, and so it's very, very special to me. So I know we've had a long, wide-ranging talk about all things, and I know your main interest is in in the Star Trek world, and I wanted to talk about that because it does, for a guy that knew nothing about Star Trek at all, and doing that episode and really going in totally blind, flying blind, to all those years later up to 2016 and going to that commercial and people lining up to shake my hand and say thank you. That's the best gift that you can give an actor, is knowing that I had some kind of little impact on somebody's life. So I'll take that to my grave.
That's awesome. Spencer, thank you so much for spending the last hour and a half with us.
I had a blast, fellas.
This has been awesome. For everyone watching and listening at home, remember you can catch up with more Clonestar Podcast at our website, clonestarpodcast.com, and also at our Patreon. But until next time, live long and prosper.
Right on. Live long and prosper.